The last transmissionth morning sun cast long shadows across the hydroponics farms of Epsilon Prime. When the first warning came through, Colony Administrator Marcus Vega was reviewing the quarterly harvest reports when his communication array lit up with emergency signals. The peaceful agricultural world, home to 3 million human settlers, had been humanity's crown jewel in the Outer Rim territories. Communications Officer Riley Nakamura burst into the command center, her face pale with terror. The quantum relay network had detected massive energy signatures approaching from deep space. These weren't human vessels or any known alien species from the Galactic Cooperative. The ships were massive, angular, and moving with deadly purpose toward Epsilon Prime. Within hours, the sky above the colony darkened with alien warships. The Cathvari had arrived without warning, their hulking dreadnoughts blotting out the twin suns. Colony Defense Commander Jonas Blackthorne immediately activated the planetary shields, but they knew their defenses were woefully inadequate against such overwhelming force. The first bombardment shattered the orbital defense platforms like glass. The second wave targeted the major population centers. Families scrambled for emergency shelters as plasma fire rained from the heavens. The crystal spires of New Geneva, the floating gardens of Harmony Bay, and the underground cities of the northern continent all fell within the first day. Dr. Helena Frost, the colony's chief scientist, managed to reach the emergency broadcast station as the world burned around her. With trembling hands, she activated the quantum transmitter, knowing this would be Epsilon Prime's final message to humanity. The signal would take weeks to reach Earth, but it had to be sent. "This is Dr. Helena Frost of Epsilon Prime Colony." She spoke into the transmitter as explosions echoed in the distance. "We are under attack by an unknown alien species. They call themselves the Cathvari. Our defenses have failed. The colony is lost. 3 million souls lived here. We had children, dreams, futures. We were farmers, scientists, artists. We were human." The building shook as Cathvari ground forces landed nearby. Through the static, her voice became urgent. "Tell Earth what happened here. Tell them we stood our ground. Tell them we were brave. Tell them to remember Epsilon Prime." The transmission cut to static as the station was destroyed. But those final words, carrying the weight of 3 million lost lives, began their journey across the void toward Earth. The Cathvari had made their statement of power. They had no idea they had just awakened something that had slumbered in the depths of human space for generations. The peaceful farmers, scientists, and families of Epsilon Prime were gone. But their final message would soon reach those who remembered what humanity was truly capable of. When pushed beyond all limits, the awakening deep beneath the streets of Geneva, in a bunker that had remained sealed for 2 centuries, ancient protocols stirred to life. The Epsilon Prime transmission had reached Earth's quantum communication array, and within minutes, every government leader, military commander, and corporate executive received the same message. 3 million humans were dead, and an alien species called the Cathvari was responsible. President Victoria Sterling stood in the Crisis Command Center, watching the transmission replay for the 100th time. Dr. Frost's final words echoed through the chamber, each syllable carrying the weight of an entire world's destruction. Around the table sat the most powerful humans in known space, but for the first time in decades, they were united in purpose. Fleet Admiral Tobias Grayson, commander of the Terran Defense Force, activated the holographic display showing human military assets. "Madam President, we have 847 active warships across all fleets. But if we're talking about total retaliation, we'll need to activate the Crimson Protocols." The room fell silent. The Crimson Protocols hadn't been used since the Centauri Rebellion 300 years ago. They represented humanity's ultimate military doctrine: total war, no quarter, extinction-level response. It was the nuclear option of interstellar warfare. General Patricia Hawthorne, head of Special Operations, leaned forward. The Cathvari made one critical mistake. They didn't just attack a human colony. They attacked a civilian population: farmers, children, scientists. They committed genocide against non-combatants. Minister of Defense Robert Cross checked his tablet. Intelligence suggests the Cathvari expected a limited response, They believe humans are soft, divided, focused on trade and diplomacy. They've studied our recent peaceful expansions and concluded we're weak. President Sterling's expression hardened. Then they're about to learn why humanity conquered a death world and spread across the galaxy. Admiral Grayson, I'm authorizing Crimson. Protocol 7. Full mobilization of all military assets. Recall every ship, every soldier, every weapon. The massive wall display showed the extent of human space. Red dots appeared across hundreds of systems as the recall order went out. Merchant vessels were commandeered, civilian shipyards were converted to military production, and reserve fleets that hadn't seen action in generations were brought online. Captain Diana Rodriguez, the youngest officer present, spoke up. Sir, the Galactic Cooperative is already calling for restraint. They want diplomatic solutions. Peace talks, reparations. Admiral Grayson's laugh was cold. The Galactic Cooperative can file their complaints with the Kethvari survivors, if there are any, within 72 hours. The largest military mobilization in human history was underway. Ships that had been museum pieces were retrofitted with modern weapons. Experimental technology was rushed into production. The industrial might of 50 worlds turned toward a single purpose, making the Kethvari pay for Epsilon Prime. The galaxy would soon learn that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their numbers, it was their memory and their absolute refusal to let the deaths of their own go unanswered. The fleet gathers Titan shipyards above Mars had never seen such activity. Massive vessels that had been mothballed for decades were being dragged from storage and fitted with the most advanced weapons humanity could produce. The USS Retribution, a kilometer-long dreadnought that had been the flagship during the Outer Rim Wars, was brought back to active duty under the command of Captain Rex Morrison. Commander Beth Silva watched from the observation deck as ship after ship arrived at the rallying point. Destroyers, cruisers, carriers, and vessels so classified that their specifications were known only to the highest levels of command. The Terran Armada was taking shape, and it was the most fearsome force humanity had ever assembled. Sir, the Nightfall Squadron has arrived, reported Lieutenant Kyle Zhang from the communications station. The Nightfall Squadron was humanity's Black Ops fleet, ships that officially didn't exist and crews that had never been born. They specialized in the kind of warfare that left no witnesses and no evidence. Admiral Grayson stood on the bridge of his flagship, the HMS Indomitable, watching the tactical display. Red markers showed the positions of 1,247 warships, with more arriving every hour. This wasn't just the Terran Defense Force anymore. This was every human military vessel in existence, united under a single command structure. Dr. Emily Watson, the fleet's chief scientist, approached with a tablet. Admiral, we've completed the analysis of the Kethvari technology from the Epsilon Prime debris. Their energy signatures suggest they're using quantum-based weapons, but their defenses are purely physical. They're not prepared for our adaptive plasma systems. What about their numbers? Admiral Grayson asked. Intelligence estimates suggest they have maybe 400 ships total. They're individually powerful, but they're not expecting coordinated resistance. They've been bullying smaller species for centuries. Commander Silva joined the conversation. The psychological profile is interesting. The Kethvari appear to be a hierarchical species that values strength above all else. They attack what they perceive as weak and avoid challenging stronger opponents. Admiral Grayson nodded grimly. Then they're about to learn what happens when they mistake kindness for weakness. What's our ETA to Kethvari space? 48 hours at maximum burn, Lieutenant Zhang reported. The fleet is organized into 7 battle groups, each with specific objectives. The plan was simple and devastating. The first battle group would engage the Kethvari home fleet. The 2nd through 4th would hit their major military installations. The 5th and 6th would target their supply lines and communication networks. The 7th, composed entirely of the Nightfall Squadron, had objectives that weren't listed in any official report. As the massive fleet prepared to enter hyperspace, Admiral Grayson opened a channel to all ships. This is Admiral Grayson to all vessels. We go to war not for conquest, not for territory, not for glory. We go to war for the 3 million souls who died on Epsilon Prime. We go to show the galaxy that humanity protects its own. The Kethvari wanted to send a message. Today, we send one back. The hyperspace jump was synchronized perfectly. 1,247. Human warships vanished from the Sol system simultaneously, leaving only empty space and the echo of their engines. The galaxy's most dangerous predator was about to remind everyone why they had earned that reputation. The reckoning Kethvari, homeworld of Vexthara, had never seen an enemy fleet. For 8 centuries, they had been the hunters, never the hunted. Their massive orbital defense platforms and planetary shields had never been tested against a determined assault. Supreme Commander Ziegler stood in his command center, confident that his people's reputation alone would be enough to deter any retaliation. That confidence lasted exactly 7 minutes after the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace. The tactical display showed what appeared to be impossible. Over 1,000 enemy vessels had appeared at the edge of their system. Organized in perfect battle formations, the Kethvari had expected maybe a dozen ships, a token force to register a diplomatic protest. Instead, they faced the largest armada in recorded galactic history. Impossible, Ziegler growled. The humans are weak. They're farmers and merchants. They don't have the stomach for real warfare. His aide, war leader Korath, studied the sensor readings with growing alarm. Sir, these aren't merchant vessels. These are pure warships. The energy signatures are off the charts. Some of these ships are larger than our dreadnoughts. Captain Morrison's voice crackled across all Kethvari communication channels. This is the Terran Armada to Kethvari Command. You have committed genocide against human civilians. You have murdered 3 million innocent people. You have one opportunity to surrender unconditionally. Ziegler's response was immediate and predictable. Humans do not dictate terms to the Kethvari. We are the apex predators of this galaxy. You will flee or be destroyed. The silence that followed lasted exactly 30 seconds. Then the human fleet opened fire. The first salvo was surgical, precise, and devastating. Adaptive plasma cannons, quantum torpedoes, and weapons that the Kethvari had never seen before tore through their outer defense grid. Orbital platforms that had stood for centuries were reduced to scrap metal in minutes. Commander Silva watched the battle unfold from the bridge of the USS Vengeance. Their shields are down 60%. Their return fire is barely scratching our armor. The Kethvari fleet, composed of 380 warships, moved to engage the human armada. They had superiority in individual ship size, but they were facing opponents who had spent centuries perfecting the art of coordinated warfare. Human battle groups moved like living organisms, each ship supporting the others in a deadly dance of destruction. The battle lasted for hours. When it ended, the Kethvari home fleet was scattered debris floating in the void. Their orbital defenses were gone. Their planetary shields had collapsed. Yet the human fleet held position, weapons powered down but still targeting every military installation on the planet below. Admiral Grayson's voice filled the silence. Kethvari Command, this is Admiral Grayson. Your military is broken. Your defenses are gone. But your civilian population remains untouched. This is the difference between us. We came here to deliver justice, not to become like you, Supreme. Commander Ziegler, his command center damaged and his pride shattered, spoke into the communication array with a trembling voice. What do you want from us? Reparations for the families of Epsilon Prime, full withdrawal from human space, and a guarantee that you will never again target civilian populations of any species. The terms were harsh but not genocidal. The Kethvari would survive, but they would never again be the apex predators they had believed themselves to be. The galaxy would remember this day as the moment humanity announced that it would no longer tolerate the strong preying upon the weak. The New Order. 6 months after the Battle of Vexthara, the Galactic Cooperative Council convened an emergency session. The destruction of the Kethvari Empire had sent shockwaves throughout known space. Species that had been silent victims of Kethvari aggression for centuries were now free to tell their stories. Ambassador Rachel Torres stood before the assembled delegates, representing humanity's new position in galactic politics. The chamber was filled with representatives from hundreds of species, many of whom had never seen a human before. The stories they had heard painted humans as either saviors or monsters. Depending on their perspective, the Cathvari committed genocide. Ambassador Torres began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. 3 million human civilians died because they were perceived as weak. The Cathvari learned that our strength lies not in our willingness to fight, but in our refusal to allow injustice to go unanswered. The Zella Nari delegate, whose species had lost 2 colonies to Cathvari raids, spoke up. The humans showed restraint. They could have destroyed the Cathvari homeworld. Instead, they chose justice over vengeance. However, not all reactions were positive. The Tice Empire's representative voiced the concerns of many militaristic species. The humans have demonstrated that they possess the largest military force in the galaxy. How do we know they won't use this power to enforce their will on others? President Sterling, attending the session via quantum link from Earth, addressed the concern directly. The Terran Federation has no interest in conquest or domination. We seek only to protect our citizens and ensure that what happened to Epsilon Prime never happens again to anyone. The debate continued for days, but the outcome was inevitable. The Galactic Cooperative voted to establish the Epsilon Prime Accords, a new set of laws that prohibited attacks on civilian populations and established humanity as the enforcement arm of galactic justice. Admiral Grayson, now promoted to Supreme Commander of the Galactic Peace Enforcement Fleet, stood on the bridge of his new flagship, the GPEF Remembrance. The ship was a joint project between human engineers and allied species, designed not for conquest but for protection. Captain Morrison, now serving as Grayson's second-in-command, reviewed the latest intelligence reports. Sir, we're getting requests for protection from 17 different species. Word is spreading that humanity keeps its promises. Then we'll keep them, Grayson replied. But we'll also remember the price of peace. Every ship in this fleet carries the names of those who died on Epsilon Prime. They're a reminder of what happens when good people do nothing. The memorial wall on the Remembrance listed all 3 million names from Epsilon Prime, led by Dr. Helena Frost's final transmission. Her words had become the motto of the new fleet. Tell them to remember. Humanity had entered the galactic stage not as conquerors, but as protectors. The galaxy's apex predators had learned that the farmers, scientists, and dreamers of Earth possessed something more dangerous than any weapon: the absolute conviction that no innocent life should be lost without consequence. The Cathvari, reduced to a single system and forbidden from expanding, served as a permanent reminder that in the new galactic order, strength was measured not by the ability to destroy, but by the willingness to protect those who could not protect themselves.